I would use money in the reserves to renovate as many properties as possible. And then I would sell those properties for $1 to people in the community. Whether you're too much of public money is going to private interest. So if you are on public assistance, or are you in Section 8, or you're making $30,000 a year and you're paying $800 a month for rent, set up a situation and environment where we can get some of that money and people can have ownership over their neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to introduce, just leading into this next question, I just want to acknowledge our Common Council members in the House. Councilor at Large Helen Hudson, I think I saw her walk in. Hi, Councilor at Large. And of course, our Common Council member for the Southside, Khalid Bey. Thank you so much for coming and supporting us. As you all know, community, Khalid Bey, Councilor Bey is our Common Council representative, so he's our arm length and our voice on behalf of the city to speak on our behalf. And Councilor Bey, earlier this year, he sent out a letter to President Obama and the Supreme Court justices and, and all the way from the mayor, from the top down to the mayor. And what he addressed is one of the concerns of the community is a policy in place for the police use of force policy. The police use of force policy. You all got that? And usually that's the force that they use mostly of our minority community. And he addressed it in a letter, and what he stated is that he suggested of changing the policy. Because right now the policy in place, not only on the state level, but the city level, it violates some of our rights as citizens and the way that they use the force and how to bridge community and police relations. So as mayor, what and that's something I think not just our minority communities are concerned about, but all communities are concerned about, because when it affects one of us, it affects all of us. So what I guess our question is with our common counselor, whomever that is, going forward, would you guys work as mayor to assist in efforts of, advocating the elected officials on the federal level to change that policy? And as mayor, would you change the city policy constitution to protect our citizens' rights for the police workforce? Did you guys understand that question? No, right? I said a lot of that. And you know what? I'm going to leave with Joe Nicoletti on that one, because he's turned around. I want you to face me, Joe. I look much better than Ben. I like attention.
I'm familiar with what Khalid did.
Right, okay.
So I think your question is, as mayor, what will be, correct me, what will be my thrust of policy in police community relations?
Yes.
Okay, fine, that's,
Before you answer that, Khalid,
is that
Councilor Bey,
Yeah.
is that the question?
police community relations?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, and just for your reference, we gave you all a copy, community, of the letter that Councilor Bey, our rep, wrote, so please refer to that. Joe?
Councilor Bay and I have talked about this in the past. I believe for
That should be a yes or no, Joe.
Huh?
That should be a yes or no.
Yeah, but I'm going to explain why.
Okay.
No, Joe, your
Okay, yes,
explanations are long.
yes,
I mean, I love you to death, Joe.
I love you too.
You got tired.
Yes.
Yeah, please keep it short and brief because we have a Q&A.
Yes,
Thank you, Joe.
I believe that there should be a policy in place that protects all citizens against violence, no matter who they are. That's why I support the body cams. That's why I support an effort to bring more diversity to our police and fire departments. And that's why I believe that we need to have an open process to deal with these things. Absolutely.
Anybody else want to tackle that question?
I would like to.
Sure.
So I too agree with Joe that yes is the easy answer, and of course, if you don't mind, I'd love the question. It's an easy answer, and thank you, Councilor Bay, for this. First and foremost, right now with the shortage of police officers that we have in the police department, what's happening is we have no police community relations on the positive level. The police are showing up when they want to arrest somebody, crack skulls, so to speak. And you know why? Because They're doing it because they're trying to keep our neighborhood safe. The police are good people. They're not bad people. But when they show up and they don't have the opportunity to have police-community relations, because quite frankly, there's not enough of them. We have a perfect opportunity. I think it was Sharon Contreras and the school board at the time when they created.
Yes or no, don't take Joe's place.
It is just, but I have to touch on this one thing. PSLA at Fowler High School is one of the best things we have going right now because they can literally train our young people to become our public servants, to become our police, that then can patrol the neighborhoods where they grew up. So it's an easy answer, and yes is the answer. Thank you.
So the letter referenced changing the city's policy to protect our rights. Would you advocate and help our common council members with that?
I'm gonna, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, ladies first, go ahead.
Thank you. The answer is yes. I'll make 2 points in reference to this question. Number one, if you haven't looked at what's going on in Camden, New Jersey, I suggest you do that. The police chief in Camden, New Jersey has taken a new and proper approach to dealing with eliminating police abuse. There are some very compelling videos of what he's doing, and this comes back to training of our police officers. And it's all about forming relationships and not using force unless absolutely necessary. Please look at what's going on in Camden, New Jersey. As mayor, anytime there's an allegation of police abuse, I will personally review every single case in collaboration with the review committee. Every single allegation of police abuse will come before me personally. Thank you.
Answer is yes. I haven't read the letter, but I see the Fourth Amendment there, and as I walk around and drive around this community, I see stop and frisk. I mean, they don't call it that, but that's what I see. So I think we need a whole new, most important decision for the next officer, mayor, is to hire a new police chief. We had a federal consent decree in 1980 that was supposed to get 10% of all the ranks in the police department up to 10% black. They're about 5%, about 7% people of color. 92% of these people live outside the city. This is 37 years later. That is, unfortunately, the way the city operates in a lot of areas. So we need a new police chief. And my model is Richmond, California. There was a green mayor there, Gail McLaughlin, and I'm actually going to be there June 19th, visiting with them. And what they did was they hired a cop as chief of police who was committed to community policing, real community policing, where you get to know the neighbors and the businesses and you solve problems before they get worse. And in a very intensive neighborhood safety initiative where they worked with the gang members and the people coming back from incarceration to get them into productive alternatives, whether it was counseling, jobs, education, whatever they needed. And they reduced the murder rate in this town of 100,000, 80% people of color, working class, that had over 40 murders a year. So it's about double the rate we had last year in a record year. For decades, down to 11 by the year she left office, by those 2 initiatives.
Okay, thank you, Howie. We got it, and just for the sake of time, thank you. We're going to stop it right there. I'm going to open it up to the community. If you have specific questions for our candidates, all candidates cannot answer your questions. So if you have a specific question, please direct it to the candidates. So please come on up, and we'll open it up to the Q&A. As you guys are lining up, I want to just ask this one last question, and then I'll hand it over to our community neighbors here. The Southside Street corridor, and I have to favoritize the South Side because I live and work here, so I care about this community, and especially the South Salina Street corridor, and how very little economic improvement that's been done on the South Side. I mean, other than the Family Dollar, a little bit here and there recently. I forgot my train of thought here. Okay. And specifically in the Sankofa neighborhoods, small businesses desire to open up along that South Salina Street corridor, along with the South Ave Avenue corridor too. So, we're all one big happy family here, and our businesses seem to not have any leeway to open up. So, what will you do as mayor to assure deliberate investment money to come here on the South Side, where it allows our citizens and our neighbors to open up small businesses to get our South Side back going? Juanita, you want to take that?
I'd love to. I'd love to do that. As I mentioned before, this has been something close to my heart, and one of the reasons that I got together with some folks to start this idea of a minority chamber of commerce. Because the thinking is that, in fact, there are funding sources to help businesses, specifically on main streets, on corridors like South Salina and South Ave. Where, unfortunately, the city has gone afray is with SEDCO. SEDCO is a particular entity in the city that is specifically for the funding of businesses like those on South Ave and South Salina Street, and specifically those types of businesses that need resources, cannot get loans, cannot get your major grants from the state, and are looking for any type of enhancement to grow their business so they can hire more people and be successful on their corridors. We also have partners on these corridors that we need to have relationships with to ensure that this is not just put on the city to try and enhance business. Both of these corridors are used to get people back and forth from the city and outside the city, and we need to be focusing on entities like Onondaga Community College, which is at the end of the South Ave corridor. So SEDCO needs to be reinvigorated, and I would certainly start there, but I also would talk to the partners that are part of these particular corridors to make sure that that type of success for businesses and those main streets are shared by all of the partners throughout those streets.
Ben, why don't you tackle that?
Thank you. So I'm glad Juanita brought up SEDCO, Syracuse Economic Development Corporation. Again, I'm going to talk about what I've done and what I'll do. So I served as the president of SEDCO for 6 years when I was at City Hall. And SEDCO was actively involved in both of the corridors we've discussed. So I see Joe Bryant back there. He can attest to the investment that SEDCO made in the Eat to Live co-op. Again, a project that grew up from the community addressing the need of food access. SEDCO was very involved in that project. Look over at South Ave, we sat down with Walt Dixie and Jubilee and a number of property owners on the South Ave corridor, heard loud and clear that they felt like they weren't getting their fair share of investment. We used community development block grant funding from the city, and leveraged it with SEDCO funds to create a local Main Street program on South Ave. We invested in the Jerk Hut, in Timbuktu, in B&B Lounge. Those were funds that we used from SEDCO. So I think we got off to a good start there. There's a lot more that we can do, but strengthening our neighborhood business corridors is critical. We can't focus just on the neighborhood. We can't focus just on the business corridors. It has to go hand in hand. Again, I've developed a strong track record of doing that. I look forward to continuing.
I'm going to go to Alfonso. I just got yelled at. Come on, for the sake of time.
I didn't yell at you. I just want to do one quick thing real quick. I support what Claire did 100%, and I want to point out one quick thing. The consent decree has never been met by the Syracuse City's Police Department. And when you have officers within roll call talking about when they got to patrol the South Side, let's just throw a bomb, that's not how you police our community. Right. Let's just throw a bomb over there and get rid of it. That's not how you police our community. Under my leadership, that won't happen. The officers said that you won't just be in roll call no more anymore. You'll be at McDonald's flipping burgers. But to the business piece, we have to make sure that we're going to put money into this community. Every administration that has took office in the city of Syracuse has not specifically targeted the South Side in terms of bringing monies or trying to bring finance to those communities so that they can create business. Project 81 is a huge project that is coming this way. Under my plan, as mayor of the city of Syracuse, I want to make sure that individuals who are interested in starting businesses, that you are at the front line of receiving access, resources, and real opportunities to do that. Under our administration, when I talk about supporting small businesses systemically from start to success, the same thing. Making sure that you have access, opportunity, and resources to do that so that we can help you grow. We'll start you off at a meager tax percentage and grow you each year as you grow. And if you fail to comply, then we'll claw back whatever incentive that we give you. But the real issue is political will. Do you have the political will to make it happen? And we have not seen anyone in City Hall with the political will to bring real resources to those communities that have been starving. It's nice to have that up there, but that is just a drop in the bucket. There's so many other things that we can do in our communities.
Thank you. Okay, let's open it up to the community. First question.
I
I'd like to applaud you guys for coming here. I was born and raised here 70-plus years ago, and as I look forward to this generation, every side of town and every ethnic group, except my ethnic group, we have a cultural center. And we need a cultural center under community development, or however we get that, on the south side of the city of Syracuse side. So hope, as mayor, you guys will start looking at that to make sure that happens on the south side. The question I want to bring up to you guys the following. You can agree to disagree, but when we talked about poverty by design in the city of Syracuse, and we became the #1 city in the country with poverty, when that is by design, correct me if I'm wrong, that means it's premeditated. And if it's premeditated, that means it's a crime. So if it's a crime, how come no one is addressing that issue of the crime that was bestowed upon two ethnic groups that this is of the city of Syracuse? Because when someone says they designed this to make this happen, that's a crime. If I was decided to come and rob a bank with us, and all of a sudden that's conspiracy, it's a crime. So I just need you guys to think about that.
Did you want anybody specifically answer, or you just want them all to think?
I want them all to think about
Okay,
that.
so
because
think
it's
about
a crime.
that. That's it? Next question.
We are not related, but apparently we match today. I just want to look as good as him when I'm his age. He's supposed to look good.
And he smells good, too.
He does. My name is Yusuf Abdukadi. I'm a resident of the South Side. I live in the Southwest community in particular. Sometimes I talk as myself as a director of ACLU. I'm not here for that today. I'm a private citizen. I need to say all my comments are my own personal comments. The land bank sucks. I don't know any of you who purchased a property from the land bank. I have. And that house was slated to be demolished. I said no. I paid way more than what I agreed to pay for by the city, but I did it anyway. It's now worth $155,000 in value, uses renewable energy, and is one of the most energy efficient homes in the southwest community of Syracuse. That's the type of policies we need in this community. We don't need to demolish homes. We don't need to talk about gentrification in this community. We need to talk about thinking about being innovative and creative and doing public-private partnerships to bring things back to this community. One. Number two, I am tired of broken windows policing theory. Throw that out the window. If you think, and I've heard, and I made a comment and I said every one of the mayoral candidates, and then someone said except one, every one of the mayoral candidates except one has said we need to hire more police. No, we don't. We have a problem in this community. And I can tell you now as director of the ACLU, I have gotten cases in front of my desk on many times in which SROs, which are school resource officers, we pay $90,000 every year for SROs, and I just came from Corcoran. Before I came here, I'll be really quick. We have one social worker in Corcoran for 1,400 students, and we have many SROs. What are you going to do about that? Because the issue that we have in this community is, and concentrated poverty, it is a crime, but that crime is not for everyone. It's around black and brown people in this community. We have targeted, isolated, economically destroyed and demolished, and we've done things in this community that are morally reprehensible and are violations of the very basic fundamental tenets that we have in society. My question is, as a mayor, rather than doing lip service to the community and telling them we need more police, crime is a problem, it's a problem. But the reason why we have crime in this community is because we spent decades suspending students as opposed to educating them. The reason we have crime in this community is because we don't allocate resources effectively towards those people, and because we don't actually care two shits about them. This is the tale of two cities on the south side. The best of times, the worst of times. How are we going to solve those issues?
Thank you. Anyone? Juanita, you raised your hand. Okay.
Thank you, Yusuf. I appreciate that. And quite frankly, I have been mixed about that idea of more law enforcement, because most people know that that is never the answer when you are not paying a sense of dignity to neighborhoods. And while crime, systematic crime in itself is bad for neighborhoods, it doesn't mean you have bad people in neighborhoods. And what I see is a lack of respect and dignity for the very people who live in these neighborhoods. And I don't know if you can train that. You know, I don't know if it involves a complete overhaul of the way we select police officers for this city. And quite frankly, what I think about are my own experiences as a young person who really was homegrown to not only have a respect for law enforcement, but to have an expectation of what law enforcement was to do for me and my family. So I was engaged in 3rd grade in a safety patrol effort where I learned how to be someone who understood law enforcement, but at the same time, I also saw what they did in my neighborhood. And I knew the expectation was much different than what I was seeing. So I think we need to expose younger people to first responder careers so they respect what it is, but at the same time, they know what the standard is and they know what to expect. And I think we need to talk differently about not so much having more officers, but who's on the street, what are they doing with regard to neighbors, and do they have the respect and sense of pride to know that people are struggling and we need to treat them with a sense of dignity.
Thank you, Juanita. I want one more answer. Okay.
We already know that they don't. We already know that they don't respect the community when they come into certain areas. We know that. We know that based on the number of complaints you've got. We know that based on the number of complaints that came to the Citizens Review Board. We already know that there's a lack of respect in certain communities. So we have to be honest and deal with the issues in terms of how do you create a paradigm that is going to bring about some real equal justice. You have to deal with the consent decree. You have to bring people from the communities, of those communities, to police their own communities. Train them. That's why I talk about a comprehensive vocational program. Not every young person is going to go to college. So we need to begin to train them to develop career tracks. Becoming a police officer in your city is a noble thing, so that you can begin to police your community. Until the city of Syracuse is forced by me, when I'm mayor, to meet the consent decree, 1, and 2, make sure that officers, no matter where you police, but particularly in neighborhoods that have been dealt the worst hand by their behavior, is dealt with earnestly, nothing's going to change. But when I'm mayor, you said it will change.
Thank you, Alfonso. We're going to finish up with Howie. Okay.
Yeah, I was the candidate that objected to saying that all the candidates want more police officers. There was a letter in the Post Standard, you could look it up. I want to go back to Richmond. When they got a new police chief who had different policies, it created turnover because they called them the jump out boys in Richmond. They were basically, you know, the people that did the stop and frisk. And they left, and he was able to hire 60% new officers. Almost 90% of the higher ranked officers were replaced. Changed the whole character of the police force. They let officers live in public housing for free. The city paid their rent and sent them to get them into the city. In fact, the current current president of the police union lives in public housing in Richmond. Imagine